It is no secret that Xbox has been having a really rough couple of weeks, from the UK CMA blocking the Activision Blizzard acquisition that Xbox had so much riding on, to the disastrous launch of Redfall, which is one of the most disappointing and disastrous AAA video game launches in recent memory. And it's a first-party title to boot, which makes optics that much worse. Looking at the review scores right now for Redfall on Xbox Series X, from 49 critic reviews, we're looking at a Metascore of below 60%, 59, and a user score of 2.7. Going to the PC version, it doesn't fare much better. The Metascore is at 57%, and the user score is even worse on PC at 1.8, because the game just really doesn't run well on PC, and it also doesn't run on consoles well either. And not to mention, the game is just bland, lacking in the creative imagination that we're so used to seeing from Arcane, combined with just how underbaked it is, lacking in content, lacking in just so many different areas that I've detailed in previous videos. And then on OpenCritic, if we look at the score here, you'll find a top critic average score of 61%, but I think more important is the percentage of critics who'd actually recommend this game despite the score, and that's where we see a disastrous score of 19% of critics who would recommend this title. Not very many. And then if we go to Steam and look at user reviews, things don't fare much better, with the game sitting at a mostly negative review score of 31% from 1,238 reviews. That makes it one of the worst user-rated games of all time on Steam. In fact, if we look at the Hall of Shame website that keeps track of the worst rated games on Steam of all time, you can see that Redfall has place in the top 20, with the score here displaying a 28%, but even if it is that 31%, it still makes it to the top 20. So this is just a really bad look for Xbox as a platform, who has not been able to output quality first-party releases consistently to really draw people to the Xbox platform. And Xbox Game Pass still has that value and a great library of games, but it does need to be fueled by high-quality first-party releases. And I feel like for Xbox, you got Halo Infinite, but the launch of that has been rough, and its post-launch has been rough as well. And now so much is riding on Starfield, but there are now doubts about that because of the precedent that Redfall set, not to mention the numerous delays on the part of Starfield that may indicate maybe that there is trouble in paradise. So hopefully the delays it really is about polishing everything and making the game really great. And hopefully that delivers and will kind of shine a more hopeful light on the future of Xbox. Now, what's happened recently is that Phil Spencer has come on to Kind of Funny's Xbox podcast to kind of be frank about the current situation with Xbox, with Redfall's launch. Now, I will give Phil Spencer credit here in that not many executives come out and are this frank and this willing to converse about a situation and to be just this upfront about the mistakes that they made. Phil Spencer full on came out and said, I gotta own my mistakes here. This is on me, and we definitely need to improve our processes. There are some great quotes here that highlights his current mentality on all of this, while providing, some bits and pieces of potential insight into what happened with Redfall and what future plans are, how they plan to adjust to ensure that this doesn't hopefully happen again. So here's a Forbes article that transcribed the Kind of Funny segment really well. Xbox's Phil Spencer addresses Redfall's poor launch. "I'm upset with myself," said Phil Spencer. This is the Kind of Funny clip that highlights specifically the Redfall portion, and here are the quotes that you need to keep in mind. "There's nothing that's more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community, and just to watch the community lose confidence, be disappointed. I'm disappointed. I'm upset with myself." That's the thing. The confidence in the Xbox platform as a whole has been shaken by just how poorly Redfall launched. You'd think that this being such a major first-party release that Xbox marketed as one of their big showstoppers in one of their presentations not too far back, you'd think that this game would have launched in a much better state, that it wouldn't have launched in such a compromised state. And Phil Spencer goes into the whole 60 FPS stuff that was announced, where Redfall launched on consoles without a 60 FPS mode. That was already a sure sign that this game needed to be delayed. On that front, Phil Spencer said, "We'll revisit our process back to the announcement of 60 frames per second, and then we weren't shipping 60 frames per second. That was our punch in the chin rightfully a couple weeks ago." And the fact that he's admitting that, yes, people people's concerns surrounding that were definitely valid, is nice. But at the same time, at the end of the day, we do need that execution to be improved. We do need those high quality games to start rolling in. The critical response was not what we wanted. I will pick myself up. What can we learn? How can we be better? And you know what? That's a great mentality to have, but Xbox One floundered so much, and Xbox Series is supposed to be Xbox learning from their mistakes, but it feels like they're still in the fumbling and stumbling stages, and hopefully as they're able to kind of get the ball rolling a bit more with the release of Starfield and hopefully future game releases from all the different studios that they've acquired whose releases are taking longer than expected, hopefully we'll be able to see Xbox actually learn from their mistakes, but so far it feels like they're still stumbling and fumbling to the point where some people are questioning right now whether Phil Spencer should remain head of Xbox. Everyone agrees that he's much better than Don Matrick, and again, his forthrightness I think is something that's appreciated, but at the same time, we need to see better results. At the end of the day, that's what's going to draw people to platforms, high quality games. When you're releasing disasters like Redfall, when that's how low the quality bar has been set for first party releases, it's bound to make people question whether it's worth sticking around for Xbox, whether it's worth, just having hope that the platform will get the ball rolling at the level that Sony has with their first-party releases that has compelled so many gamers and drawn so many people into the PlayStation platform. But here's more from Phil Spencer. One thing I'll fight is what went wrong. There is clearly quality and execution things we can do. He keeps it very vague, but he continues that one thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. I'm a huge supporter of Arcane Austin. Their track record is awesome. I love a lot of their games that they've built. They didn't hit their own internal goals when it launched. I think it's maybe a little simplistic to say if you would have just laid it 3 months, the core creative of the game would have delivered on something that was different than what it was. On one hand, I do like that Phil Spencer is committed to ensuring that studios aren't bottlenecked into doing what executives want them to do, but rather that they're allowed to really express themselves however they want to by doing the projects that they feel good about doing, that they genuinely want to do. On the other hand, man, Redfall feels like such a corporately made project. Is that really what Arcane Austin was so passionate about making? Maybe their vision was just so much grander, but they just couldn't execute on it during the process, during the development period, where they had to just scope it down so much more because of time limitations, because of just development troubles that, we may or may not find out about. But whatever the case, look, it's great that Arcane Austin was given creative freedom to pursue whatever they wanted, but clearly Arcane Austin, if it was their decision to make this looter shooter with a vampire coat of paint, it clearly wasn't to their strengths. They clearly should not go this route again unless they really feel significantly more confident that they can execute better. This clearly just isn't a genre that they specialize in, and it clearly just did not work out this time. And so I think the concept of the game itself was a mistake, and I do agree when Phil Spencer says right here that it's simplistic to say that if you would have delayed the game by 3 months, the core creative of the game would have delivered on something that was different than what it was. What this game needed was a complete overhaul or a mega enhancement of the foundations that it had. A couple months delay wouldn't have been enough. This game would have definitely been needed to be delayed by a couple years, I'd say, for it to be able to realize a vision that just would be more compelling to play. Unfortunately for Redfall, the core creative of the game, which could not have been changed with just a couple months of delay, was a generic looter shooter, a genre that's becoming much more stale, especially with how saturated the competition is and how much you have to stand out in this landscape with compelling gameplay, a compelling loop of progression, and a compelling rewards give out to make it in this field. And Redfall falls so short of even the most basic quality standards that it really is baffling that this game launched at all in that state. And again, with Redfall being a first-party title and with Xbox showing a willingness to launch a game in such a dire and incomplete state, it makes people question whether games like Starfield can expect to have a similar type of launch where it's not ready and Xbox is willing to put it out there anyway and take people's money, $70 or whatever, anyway. Phil Spencer concluded by insisting that support for this game will continue and that they will try to patch it as much as possible, but I am so sick and tired of this trend. And I do feel like, with something like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, there's a good game underneath all of the technical and performance issues. With Redfall, I feel like no matter what you do in terms of fixing the technical issues, the bugs, the 30 FPS limitations on consoles, it's still ultimately at its core rotten, incomplete. It's at its core not a good game. That cannot be fixed by just some simple patches. They would have to go full No Man's Sky with it and slowly overhaul the title. If they're committed to that, hell, we'll see what happens. But if they're just planning to just add extra content but keep the foundation the same, Redfall will just never recover, which is unfortunate given that Arcane have insisted that Redfall would be their most long-term supported game, because the idea was to make this a compelling looter shooter that people will come back to for years to come. But I get the sense that this game is gonna die off pretty quickly because of how meager the reception has been, and in turn how meager the player base likely is at this point. In fact, going to SteamDB and looking at the all-time peak players since launch, 6,124 players is really, really poor results for a game that is supposed to be a major AAA first-party release that's supposed to be this looter shooter that is supposed to keep people engaged for a long time to come. And, we're already in the low thousands of people playing right now. This already goes to highlight that Redfall has probably sold very poorly, will not meet Xbox's expectations, and it'll be a big financial loss for Xbox, for Arcane, is what I'm predicting. But anyway, here's what Phil Spencer said about the post-launch of Redfall. The team at Arcane is taking the near-term feedback. We're still working on the 60 FPS. We have a good timeline for that. We're committed to getting that done, and we're going to continue to work the game. Again, just putting 60 FPS in there on consoles is not going to save this from being a bad game. I think we're going to continue to work the game. We have shown commitment to games like Sea of Thieves and Grounded to continue to build games, but I also know these games are $70, and I'm going to take full responsibility for launching a game that needs to be great at that price point. This game is definitely not worth $70. They should discount it right now and either refund people fully for those who are so dissatisfied with the game that they don't want to play it anymore, or they should at the very least offer partial refunds for those who bought it at launch and are deciding to give this game a chance in the long term, wait until it gets patched or it gets some content updates and whatever. I just don't know how we're reaching $70 levels of price point for games and launching them the way that they've been launching, especially on PC. PC ports have been dreadful, with Redfall, with freaking Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Again, a good game underneath all of the technical issues, but it runs terribly on PC. The Last of Us Part 1 PC port also had technical issues with the PC port, and the list goes on, and it's a trend that's highly unfortunate. But with Redfall specifically, I feel like there was quite a lot riding on it because of its first-party nature and because Xbox has been deprived and kind of starved for first-party content, high-quality first-party content to come out that can compete on the level of Sony's first-party releases. But currently, nothing of the sort has happened on Xbox's front. So, look, I appreciate Phil Spencer's candor. I appreciate the fact that he's willing to come on and actually have a conversation, admit his mistakes, and, admit that there are still things that need to be improved. But I just feel like we've done this whole song and dance, and it's like, how much longer do we have to wait before we feel like Xbox is starting to get on some kind of roll? Hopefully, Starfield will be the spark that will light this fire, because right now, this fire is waning and it is going off like a broken light bulb. It's still very much an anti-consumer thing that's happened here, and so a lot needs to be rectified. There's an uphill battle that Xbox needs to fight right now to garner confidence again from the gaming crowd, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that Xbox and Phil Spencer can somehow make it happen. I think more competition is better. Xbox just really needs to they really need to start pulling some W's here. But that is one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on what Phil Spencer had to say about the launch of Redfall, what you think about the general state of Xbox currently, and whether you think there is a path and a road for Xbox to recover from what's been a rather terrible past few weeks for the platform and the company. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.